Hey everyone, Ashley Mailloux here with the DRF. Sunday, April 9th, race of the day is race number 7 from Santa Anita. That's at 6.5 furlongs on the turf. It's the John Shear, which, if you're wondering who John Shear is, a longtime paddock captain at Santa Anita. He retired there at the age of 100, and this year he turned 102. It's a great story. You should really read up on him. So this race traditionally was the John Shear Mile. Now it's the John Shear. And we'll take a look at this field here. It's an interesting field of 8, a couple directions to go in. Conclude will take a lot of respect in here. I also think Valiant Sir will also take respect. But even other horses, such as the 2 on the inside, I think they're eligible to improve. Got some other horses trying the turf for the first time, which makes this a really fun race. Now, to get Race of the Day access, don't forget your mobile device. You can click or scan the QR code, and you can get those free past performances for Race of the Day for Sunday and just in general in the future. So let's jump into this field of 8. The number 1, Mas Rapido, is trained by Bob Hess Jr., and this is a horse that's been kind of knocking at that victory in those last several efforts. And we'll actually look at that most recent effort on March 19th at Santa Anita, going 5.5 furlongs. And looking at this effort, you can see here, this Mas Rapido is the number 4, the number 8 is Valiant Sir, and the number 1 is Mark's Hip. And just looking at this kind of stretch run, Mark's Hip is trying to steal it on the front end. Mas Rapido is trying to close here, but Valiant Sir is also closing and just has a slightly better turn of foot. And I think maybe this is part of the trip that Mas Rapido got. It'll be interesting to see what Kenta Sormo is able to do. You can see a jock change is going to climb aboard this horse for the first time. And I think there might be a change of strategy here just in terms of the trip that this one got, where you see Valiant Sir was really far back early on, had that speed to close into, and was able to kind of get that repeat performance. So I still think it was a good effort and expecting more from this one on Sunday. The number 2 First Piece is where we'll go next. This one's trained by Mark Glatt. We'll take a look at his most recent race, which is actually in the Eddie Logan back at the end of 2022 on December 30th. First Piece is the number 4 here, and you can't miss this gray horse trying to get on the lead here, and really does have kind of the lead at this point. But looking at other horses in here, such as the number 3 Classical Cat, just has a slightly better late closing stride here and is able to get the job done by just half a length. The favorite in here was Nagarok, who was the number 5, was just 3rd best. So I think looking at First Piece effort, very good effort. I know he was defeated, but he got an 84 Beyer speed figure and a very consistent type. Look at his record in terms of trip. I do think he'll be kind of pressing the pace in here. I think that's probably his best chances, but we'll see what they end up doing. They do have post position 2 on Sunday. The number 3, Valiant Sir, we did see that most recent effort, which was a winning one, a very impressive performance, especially facing winners for the first time, where other horses in the field, they had kind of had that first or second crack facing winners. It was his first time. He was cutting back from 6 to 5.5 with it, which in some respect you might think, oh, he's a closer. He's coming from off of it. Maybe he needed extra ground, but he did get that pace to run out and was very impressive. Hector Barrios has been aboard him in his last 3 efforts. And just an interesting stat for trainer Jeff Mullins, just looking at a winner's last out in turf sprints. The stat is 4 for 14, 29%. 71% in the money with a $2.80 ROI. I believe that's for the last year. That's just, the barn has been on fire in those regards. So I think Valiant Sir, in my opinion, certainly one to look at in this race. And you just look at the stats for the barn, as I mentioned, very strong. So best chances, obviously, is a very hot pace, but even with a slightly not as robust pace, I think Valiant Sir has a big shot. Now, the number 4 concludes to his outside. This is a horse that finished 2nd on debut, going 6.5. And then in that second start, cut back slightly in distance to 5.5, and we'll take a look at this performance from Conclude. Just looking at the trip that he ends up getting here, he's the number 4. You can see those famous silks of Little Red Feather. Ends up getting the lead in here throughout, and is just very game in the stretch, and is actually going to turn away Fleet Feet, who will have to face again on Sunday. And it's no match in the end when this horse is called upon. I really love the way that he geared down, and very impressive effort, a 96 Beyer speed figure. So he can, he's showing it. He wants to be forwardly placed. I do think it'll be interesting if they want the lead in here. You start to look at other horses in here. The horse to his outside is very quick. There's some other speed. So he might have to show a different dimension. But what he showed last time out certainly gives him a big shot on Sunday. The number 5 is next here. This one's trained by Ryan Hansen. This is an interesting horse as well. I mentioned speed to the outside. This horse has a ton of early foot. Typically, though, he gets caught in those final stages. Now, I will say I like that they gave him that 6.5 furlong effort to start the year, because prior to that, he had only gone 5 ace on the turf. And I thought, considering that stretch out off a bit of a freshening, he did race well. That race was won by Johannes, who's been very, very impressive so far. Was actually a next out winner. My concern, though, is will he have enough left in the tank in the final stages? I'm not sure he will on Sunday. The number 6, Nullarbor, this one trained by Bob Baffert, went to Golden Gate for the El Camino Real Derby, was the pace setter, opened up a huge lead on the field and tired in there. And that's going 1.125 miles. He's cutting back in distance. You look at that maiden victory, 6 furlongs, but it's 6 furlongs on the dirt. The turf is the big question. Just looking at Bob Baffert's stats with first turf with non-maidens over the past 5 years, it's not a great stat. It's 2 for 27 in terms of wins, 26% in the money. It'll be interesting to see in terms of how much respect he'll take here, just because, yes, he was impressive in his maiden score, but I'm taking, in my opinion, I would be taking horses that have turf experience, just combining what we've seen so far from him and that stat for Bob Baffert. The number 7, Mark's Hip. This one was second last time out, going 5.5 furlongs. It was just his second effort on the turf, and his other turf effort was a winning one. He went gate to wire, going 6 furlongs on Santa Anita Park's turf course. His turf races are clearly his best races. They've tried different things with him. His races at Golden Gate on the synthetic, they're respectable, but his dirt races, nowhere near as good as the turf. So I like that he's going to stay on the turf once again. And then to wrap it up, the number 8, Fleet Feet. This is a horse that I showed last time out, was second. Clearly second best behind Conclude. He's actually a maiden. He hasn't raced since that effort. He'll be trying to graduate against this group, and I do think that's a tall task. Just knowing that Conclude was kind of able to, really take away from him, or I should take off in the stretch in that race. I would have reservations about Fleet Feet, but his last race was still respectable, but just way deeper waters and a different kind of scenery in terms of competition that he'll face on Sunday. So that is the field of 8 for the John Shear. And I struggled here to kind of narrow it down. I was torn between the number 3, Valiant Sir, and the 4, Conclude. I did go to the number 4, Conclude. I just think looking at the way that this horse was able to kick on in the stretch and really geared down so strongly, I think there's some potential with this one to really step it up. So I'm not concerned that this horse is going to jump into, a small stake after graduating last time out. The 3, Valiant Sir, though, I think is a huge player in here. One that if I'm playing any sort of pick 5, whether it's the coast to coast or the pick 5 at Santa Anita, I think he's a must use. Just he's been very impressive in those last 2 and has been able to close tremendously in those. And then from there, torn between the 2 and the 1, I thought First Piece was very impressive in the Eddie Logan, just was denied in the end. And Mas Rapido, I think, is going to have a better performance than we saw last time out. But for me, the number 4, Conclude, is where I landed in Sunday's John Shear. Good luck.